Now we need to do an iterative process called fret rocking. So we need a marker of some kind, and you'll need your fret rocker. And what we're checking for here is high spots. So we're going to straddle 3 frets, and most fret rockers have some sort of shape like this because as you get farther up the fretboard, the frets get closer together. So you'll have to go to the different spots to check. But we start off with the long side, and I don't know if you can hear that or not. Got a little bit of high spot there. So I always check outside, middle, and the other side. So I am not getting any rocking at all there. I'm not getting any rocking at all in the middle. The rocking doesn't start until right about there, so it's just a bit. And so this is called spot leveling. Because to level, if you want to level the entire board at once, that's often more efficient. If you've got a really problem, like a lot of frets that are out, that's usually the most efficient. But you'd want to take the nut off, and sometimes the nut will come off cleanly, but sometimes you'll destroy it in the process. So this is just called spot leveling. So I've got a high spot there. So we need to address that before we can move on. So the first thing to check is to make sure the fret is seated all the way down. And if you see any kind of a gap at all, you're going to want to tap it with a hammer. So let's talk about that now. So this, now lots of options here. I'm going to show you quite a few. This is called a neck call, that made by Stumac. These aren't expensive, but you'd have to order it and pay for shipping and all that. And you'd have to, with it attached to the body, you'd have to put like another piece of wood underneath it. So that's an option. This is a fantastic option. So my granddad was an avid bird hunter and champion trap shooter, and he reloaded his own shotgun shells. So this is a bag of bird shot, and you can get this at sporting goods that cater to hunters. And that is an outstanding call to tap against. It becomes a buck, so you can tap and you won't lose any energy that way. If you don't have access to a bag of lead birdshot, which probably many of you don't, here's another option. This is a sandbag. And so if all of your sandbags are being used in your bunker, of course you don't need a sandbag this large, but the easiest way, I'm going to switch back to the birdshot, and then I would, with this plastic, it's kind of rough, so you wouldn't want to scratch up the back of your neck, so I would throw a towel over that. That's also pretty large. If you could get just play sand and put it in a small garbage bag or something, or even like a gallon-sized freezer bag, that would work great. Put some play sand in a gallon-sized Ziploc freezer bag, that would work great. This is, it's a little big, it's a little unwieldy, so I wouldn't advocate that. If you don't know I'm talking about play sand, you can get it at your local home center, something like that. $5, and that's more than enough. I mean, that's way more than you need. A bag this size is great. So I do not see a gap there, so I'm not going to try to tap that one. I will have to demonstrate. I do see some others where I see a slight gap, where, you know, if that's a problem area, then I'll show you how to, the proper tapping technique. And I've got an old mouse pad. I tend to save everything. I think I was born in the wrong era, but mouse pads are a great thing to have sometimes. So we need to address that high spot before we move on. So the most efficient way to take care of that is unfortunately expensive. This is a diamond file. that StuMac sells, and I always just use the 300 grit or the medium size, and I just work on that spot that I marked. Now these little guys are fast, they last quite a while. These have worked on many frets. And then you check. Oh yeah, boy, nailed it. That's all there was to it. That was quick. So these guys are expensive, and if you think you might only do one or two, and you don't want to invest in that, then on Amazon you can find tools like this. This was not particularly cheap, but you can find tools that are similar to this. This is not a diamond file, it just has teeth. And you can find these for probably 20 bucks. They're not going to last very long, of course. You get what you pay for. This is a decent quality one that I got at Grizzly. This was probably, I don't know, 40 bucks or something. But this is a file that, and like any file, so we'll try to find another high spot here. Files always cut on the push stroke. You never pull a file backwards. That's how you run a file. So a diamond file, however, that's just an abrasive. So you can. That's why they work so fast, because you can just go back and forth. And so they're literally twice as fast. So there's that one. Now we need to move down to the next set. Tiny. We got just a little bit of rocking right in this, just in the center. So I don't even know if I need to mark that, but I guess the mark just lets you know if you've removed any material or not. So now we'll use this guy. And remember, this is just on the push stroke. So you have to push and lift up. So if you get a toothed file, make sure you do not drag it backwards, at least under any kind of pressure. That also actually worked pretty fast, although I'm still getting a little bit of rocking there. Gone. Okay, now we'll move to the next three. And I can still use the long side. Perfect, no rocking whatsoever. Now I think we're going to start switching to a shorter side. Nada. That's good. Next three. Great. This one's pretty good. Okay, there's a little bit there. Nothing. Nothing. So it's just out here. Now, the nice thing about these fret files is that it has the shape. Frets have a crown on them. They're rounded, and you wouldn't want to just use a regular file. I mean, you could to level out that spot, but then you'd have to reestablish a crown. And that's tricky with standard tools. A little bit more. Good. Okay. Alright, we have a high, well, not on this side, but from the middle over, it's high. And this is one of the ones I noticed doesn't appear to be seated all the way. So, I'm going to move my dead blow bag, or my bag of shot, back. And I'm going to try seating it with a hammer. Now ideally, if you had a brass hammer, this would be the perfect tool for that. But I know a lot of people don't have a brass hammer, so I won't use it. I will use a regular old claw hammer. Now what I see a lot of beginners do is they kind of hit like that and they bounce the hammer. Bounce. You don't want to do that. You want to give the hammer a chance to work. And also this wire, it's called nickel silver, but it's actually mostly copper. I mean, I don't know what percentage, but a pretty high percentage of copper. It's pretty soft stuff, so it's easy to dent it with a hammer. So you got to be gentle, and just don't bounce it off the fret. Just choke way up on the handle. In fact, you could even get your hand clear up on there and just let it transfer all of that energy to the fret efficiently. And then we'll check it again. Oh, well, what do you know? Good eye. So, yeah, I probably maybe shouldn't have marked that, because now it's seated. So, and then it's just an iterative process. You're going to go all the way down like that. Just repeat it all the way down. So, obviously, it's going pretty quick. This one is not that bad. I've seen much worse. Now, you could sand that off with some high grit sandpaper. You could wipe it off with, a Q-tip with alcohol, whatever. It would be nice if you guys could polish these, but again, that's stuff you're going to have to buy. So maybe if you can get your hands on some really fine grit sandpaper. What do I have handy? Not 320. Oh, there we go. 800, 1,000, 1,500. That's what we're talking about. Super fine. For fretwork, 320 is relatively coarse, and you'd want to go much higher, kind of into your metalworking sandpapers. Kind of surprised I don't have a piece up here. That's all 320. No, let's grab a piece of this stuff. There we go. 800. Because we may need this for another demo. So I would go to as fine a grit as you can, and then you could polish the frets with toothpaste. Actually, this toothpaste has a little bit of a grit in it usually. And 800 grit is not going to hurt the fingerboard at all. So you could clean these all up with your 800 grit. And if you can get a hold of 1,000 grit, 1,500, even 2,000 grit, you'll get your frets very nicely polished. And then for cleaning, a rosewood board. I think all of your kits are going to come with rosewood boards. I like, oops, that's goof off. Thought that lighter fluid is actually naphtha, and naphtha works fantastic for cleaning. So if you can, go to any grocery store and get a little can of, I've got some somewhere. There it is. You can get this stuff at any drugstore, grocery store, whatever. It contains naphtha. So naphtha is the stuff. It's an excellent cleaner. And then to lubricate the board afterwards, I'll show you a product you can get anywhere, just about any hardware store. This stuff, Feed and Wax, is awesome. You could also use boiled linseed oil, works just fine. Most of the specialty guitar oil, fingerboard oils, they're mostly boiled linseed oil anyway. Probably including that stuff. That stuff just has wax in it.